Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, brought to you by Satori Prime. If you're anything like us, you've been around and around the personal development and mindset block quite a few times. You've read the books, watched the videos, attended the seminars, and even worked with a coach or two, and yet you still find yourself searching for more. You may even feel stuck or that you should be farther along than where you are right now. And after doing over a decade of mindset work, we've come to this realization. Mindset work is like a small hit of dopamine that distracts you from your true work. You get these little hits of feeling better, only to be met with the same underlying conditions and patterns over and over again. Now, mindset was an important part of your evolution as well as ours, but it hits a plateau, and now you find yourself ready for that deeper layer of growth and expansion. If you're listening to this podcast, then you're ready to get off that Ferris wheel. This podcast is only for those that are ready to dive deep and do the real inner healing work. For those that are ready to move past more information into actual experiences. If you're looking for more understanding, then you've come to the wrong place. This is a home for old souls ready to fully embrace and remember who they truly are. Ready to make a profound difference in their lives and in the lives of others. So welcome home, dear one. We're excited to be part of your journey.
All right, cool. So we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite topic today, or perhaps your least favorite topic today. Depends on what your relationship to it is, but we're going to be having a conversation about money. And it's an important one because it's a driving factor behind many of our lives and does make certain things available, obviously. And we want to just really get related to our patterns around it and what we can do to change those so we're not dealing with the same type of structural patterns in our lives around our finances and our just our ability to create more abundance in our lives. Before I dive in, just a few announcements. If you're new to our community, whether you're watching this live or on a replay, most likely when you got signed up with us, you also got registered for a 28-day meditation challenge. I don't really know why we call it a challenge, but people like challenges. It's a 28-day retraining, really. And our meditations here are really not about quieting your mind or having you try to relax your body, although those will be natural symptoms of doing this work. Although we ask that you actually don't focus on those things at all. We remind people not to quiet their minds. These are what we call active healing meditations. And we're going to show you in these meditations, we're going to train you, not just show you, we're going to train you how to go into higher states of consciousness with relative ease. And then what are the practical functions of doing that? How does that elicit a healing response from the body? So the most healing thing that Elon and I could ever do for anybody is we always remind our clients and students that we are never the ones doing the healing. We always want to point you back at the groundedness of your own awareness. That might not mean anything to you right now, but ultimately it's actually a very, very important foundational thing that we have learned in training people is that it's, you really want people to be related to their own power and their own sovereignty and their own system and recognize that, hey, you can come to Elon and me and ask us to fish for you all day long, but you want to become a competent fisherman so you can feed yourself all day long. And that's a way of saying that you want to be able to resource yourself and get to a state of a higher vibrational output, to be grounded, to experience well-being in your system, and to actually have your nervous system retrain itself to feel safe. Okay, this is not talked about nearly enough in healing and developmental circles about the importance of retraining the nervous system to actually feel safe, to not be in a fight or flight or hyper reactivity, because that ultimately leads to a lot of the problems and amalgamations that people have in their lives. And so we really, really want to cultivate safety in our experience and well-being in our system and reset the foundation from which we experience life. So if you do nothing else with us, right? Like some of you guys put in applications with us, you don't have the finances to do it right now. You're upset about that we charge for our programs and stuff like that. This is why we developed this 28-day meditation thing, is so that you can, at the very least, retrain yourself. And then later down the road, if you want to go from just being a person who's a student, you want to actually become a practitioner and a master of this type of work. And I would urge you to do that because it's life changing when you become that. You still have some training that you can take home with you that's wildly valuable. And you don't have to go very far down the newsfeed in this group or reading the commentary inside of the members area where the 28-day meditation challenge is to see the type of value that people get from this type of work. Okay. And then, of course, we would love, love, love nothing more than to have you in our advanced programs. In fact, for those of you guys that don't know, we have a live event coming up on this Saturday and Sunday. These only happen, I don't know what, 4 or 5 times a year. So you definitely want to get in there, especially if you've never done our work before. And a lot of you guys who are already in our work, you're of course invited to be there. You know how to get there, hopefully by now. If not, then reach out for support. But for those of you guys who are like new to the party, you're not really ready to make a big investment yet in terms of time and equity into a program, this is a great way for you to get started. You can go to intuitivemind.live, and I would recommend that you register as soon as possible because there's a 6-hour pre-training, recorded pre-training, that we're going to give you immediately in a back office setting that you can start going through right now, and they will actually prepare you better for the program and give you even more value. So you get some training before you get in, and then we pick up from there. And so it's okay if you don't do the training, but we highly recommend that you get that in there. So again, intuitivemind.live. Bro, can you actually drop a link for them in there? So Elon will drop the link. I think you can actually scan that QR code over there too, if you can see it on the right-hand side, if you want to be taken there. Go look at the testimonials, go look at all those things. If you're like, what is this event really about? If you've never done anything in the energetic or awareness space, there is probably not enough context in this world that we can give you to express how powerful of an experience this is. Okay. This is not more mental architecture. This is not more personal development, although we'll drip stuff in there about that, about the psychological aspects and how this affects your biology and stuff like that and physiology. This is what most people have never done. Like if you've done a lot of personal development work, we call that the growing up path. You've probably done a lot of that. You probably understand about the mind and how it creates stories and how to change paradigms. And if you haven't done that, that's fine too. We have programs for that as well. We run the gamut here. This program is strictly brings you to awareness and energetic practices, which are more geared towards a lineage and path that we call the waking up path. Right? So Eastern type of work, Zen Buddhism, things like this are all more focused on the waking up work. Western psychological therapeutic type things, way more focused on the growing up work. We do both here. Okay, that's why our work is so potent. Like if you're new to our community and you're like, oh, what are these guys talking about? What's so different about them? What's unique here? That's what's unique is we actually do both in our community. And as far as we can tell, there's no organization on earth right now that's doing both. And that's why putting these two aspects of these incredibly important lineages and paths together, bringing them together and teaching people how to not just set the foundation of their mind, but also get into their spiritual bodies, energetic bodies, and starting to do that work for a lot of people, most people, I would say, it's probably one of the most eye-opening experiences of their entire lives, and gives access to something radically different in terms of their capacity to be with the things that are going on in their lives, and then ultimately actually create healing, not just learning how to manage and cope what's happening better, but literally resolve it all together. Okay. So intuitivemind.live, again, it's coming up really, really soon. We did a promo all weekend. So, if you missed that, then you can still buy a ticket. But yeah, we would love to have you. We promise you it's going to be an experience of a lifetime for you and the people who come. I mean, it's probably one of our favorite things to do because we get to spend the most amount of time with you guys. It's, I think, like roughly 12 hours of training from Elon and myself, and it's for $444. Okay. I promise you, there is no other experience, not even close, that Elon and I offer that you can come spend that much time with us under any pretense other than this weekend. Okay. So it's a really, really good experience. Last thing I'll say, and then we'll jump into the money conversation. Last thing is, again, if you are somebody who is newer to our community, or you've been looking at, well, how do I actually have a conversation with these guys about their programs? What are the different options that they have here? this is not stuff we openly promote even on our own website what our programs are, because they're so intimate and there's a lot of different ways to get in there and customize your experience. So it would be confusing to just be like, here it all is, pick one. It'd be like giving you ever been to the Cheesecake Factory when they hand you the menu and you spend the next 25 minutes of your life relegating, flipping between sandwiches and burgers and pasta and cheesecakes and trying to figure out what the right thing is. Like, that's the kind of experience, just overwhelms the system. So we have consultants who are not just quote salespeople, but are people who do this work ongoingly, some of which have been around to 7 or 8 years doing this type of work in different facets. And so those people can help you figure out, based on the time you have, the equity you want to put in, your level of commitment. Are you just somebody who just wants to be like a weekend warrior? Or are you like, I want to master this? Or you're a coach who wants to learn these things and be able to charge more for your services? Are you a high net worth individual? Are you somebody who's really struggling financially right now, right? Like, we have so many people and so many different types of life experiences. And so what we've attempted to do, and we're always trying to do it better, is give pathways for everybody in every situation and in every level of commitment that you might have. Okay, so the best thing to do is to have a conversation with those people. They'll ask you for a short self-assessment so they can find out more about you, and you guys are not wasting time answering a bunch of questions. Just like going to a doctor's office, right? You're like, why do you fill out the form? So the doctor can like sit down with you, look at your form, and be like, all right, how do I help you? And you can get down to brass tacks. Like, if we did all that on a call, you'd be on a call for 2 hours with every person, and that's may not be useful. So fill that out, have a conversation, see if it's the right fit for you. We have a bunch of payment and financing options if you're struggling right now financially. And so we've done a lot of things here to try to support the community wherever you might be. Announcements.
That was a mouthful.
Mouthful.
Yeah. I would just say do whatever in your power to make it to this event.
Oh, yeah. And I just want to say the booking link is above your head, soulsandseekers.com/book. And on that page, I think there's some fun video or testimonials or something there. And that's the thing, like, you'll see on all our pages, we swarm them with testimonials. I looked over the last 5 years, Elon and our programs have an under 2% refund rate. It was 0.19 last time I checked. And the reason the refund rate is so low is because this work works. Okay. We know it works. It's proven to work. We've done it with thousands of people. And the reason it works is not because Elon and I have devised or figured out anything special here. It's because what we're teaching is human nature. We're teaching about universal principles and truths that are timeless. These programs will be as beneficial today as they would be 200 years from now. Like, that aspect, these spiritual principles, these things about human development. Of course, Elon and I are always learning more in our own development because we're always working more on our stuff. We're always working with more people. It's always revealing more truths. And so these programs are only getting better over time. Our delivery of them only get better over time. And we've been doing this for a combined 36 years. Right. So I just want you to imagine going to like a doctor who's been doing surgery, the same surgery for 18 years. Okay, or whatever practice you might be in, playing an instrument for 18 years, 20 years nonstop. That's what we offer here. And again, Elon and I are not the ones doing the healing. We're simply guides to your own divinity. We're guides to your own awareness. We are going to point you to the things that someone long ago pointed to us for. And then we've had a lot of experience in that particular space, so we can see it from a lot of different angles and perceptions. And so there's really like almost nothing that Elon and I haven't dealt with another human being in this context at this time. So whatever you're dealing with, right, you're dealing with. That's your life circumstances. And we can tell you that what's underneath all that are the patterns that are creating and bringing that circumstance into your life. Chances are, and we're going to talk about money, right? So we can start applying it to this area of life. Chances are, if you don't have some kind of internal intervention about your relationship with money, and I want you to start considering this as we talk about it right now, is like what was happening at home around money. Like me and Elon, we grew up in a very poor immigrant family. We moved here from Israel in 1989. Our parents barely made $1,600 a month for a family of four. Right? I remember we had a little calendar on the wall where my mom would write down like every dollar that we spent, because they had to make sure that they had enough money for rent at the end of the month. Now, I don't ever remember thinking we were poor. I don't ever remember feeling particularly poor. However, looking back at it, I was like, oh, okay, that was interesting. Like, the child picks up what's in the home. And today, when there are certain financial struggles that I continue to have in my life, because I realized my parents taught me nothing about money. Like, and so I've gone and made a lot of the same mistakes that I probably didn't need to make in order to learn those lessons over time. And I've made them at probably a grander scale than my parents had to make them, because I've been in a fortunate position to earn larger sums of money over the last 12 years. Trust me, it doesn't feel good when that stuff happens. Uh, and I've had to learn that. I've also had to learn about the fear in my system and the terror that there is around money and all these different things. And then, like, how does that relationship ultimately put me into situations in my life where either I'm sabotaging it, or that money leaves for a particular reason, or there's discomfort in my system about a certain amount of money, or a certain level of service that I might be providing. And these are the edges that all of us have inside of our systems that relegate us to staying in a certain threshold of what's okay and feel safe for our system, whether it's having very little or not having enough, right? Or sometimes when you have too much, the system will sabotage and get rid of it. And so these are all the things that we want to start having conversations about.
Yeah, I was actually at an event this past weekend, and it was magnificent. It was really huge, and it had all these vendors around wellness. Some were just selling, shirts and clothing and crystals and tinctures of this and tinctures of that, all the things that you would expect at like a wellness thing. And then there's also practitioners, so people who are leading retreats and meditation practitioners and sound healing practitioners and yoga practitioners, etc. And I met this one lady who did a breathwork session. We really kind of hit it off. And in talking, I had suggested to her, I was like, I'd love to have a conversation after this and just see if we can collaborate. I told her a little about what we do, and she was like, oh my God, I'd love to work with you and put you on our board and da 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 da. And in the conversation, she said something very interesting to me. She said, I've made a concerted effort, because of the transformation that I've had, which I'm going to talk about in a second, to only deal with people in this space who can operate both from the left and right brain. Mm. And she said to me that for years, she started doing breath work like 25 years ago. I mean, right? But made no money at all till the last like maybe 6 or 7 years. And she said for about 18 years, what I struggled with was this notion that like I'm teaching something that is this holistic thing and it's not about money and all that kind of nonsense that people in the spiritual world try to make themselves believe. And she's like, and I was basically like a starving teacher. I couldn't pay for anything, I couldn't do anything, etc. And then I just flipped it. And I realized that the only way to add value in the world is to have resource so that I can, in fact, go out there and create the change that I want. Mm-hmm. Because whether you guys want to believe it or not, money today, not always, but in this time frame that we're in right now, is the resource that moves everything. Period, full stop. Like, I don't care what, name an industry where the most money is, that is where that industry is moving, right? Like, and so to sit on the sidelines and think that, oh, I don't need it or blah, 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 like bullshit. Do you want to make a difference in this world? And we just had this conversation with our coaches. Like, if you're a coach, one of your core things is that you want to make a difference. You can't turn it off. You can't shut it down. It just is who you are. And how are you going to make more of a difference when you're resourced or under-resourced? Think about even from health. How can you take care of other people in your life when you're sick and depleted, or when you feel energized and healthy? Money is the same exact thing, right? Like, there's an energy to money. And for me, what I realized is I would much rather money be in my hands than the hands of, a masochistic, misogynist, whatever CEO who's just like in it for themselves, right? Like, I'd much rather have those millions and billions in my possession to be able to put out into the world in the way that I know will actually move this planet and humanity into its next iteration. So if I sat there and was like, oh, well, I'm in this holistic wellness space, so I don't really, like, I'm not about money, like, bullshit. Bullshit. How many of you guys, and I know there's many of you here, I don't know if here right at this moment, but how many of you guys have wanted to do our programs, whichever version, level 1, 2, or 3, and the only thing that has stopped you from moving forward with doing our program is money? Like, if you had it right now, you'd be like, oh my God, I'd be absolutely in one of those programs. But money. And so this thing of money limits us in one way, shape, or form. It either limits us or it creates massive opportunity for what it is that we want. Now, here's the crux of this. When people struggle with money, they are in a waiting game for their life and their circumstance to miraculously unfold so that they can now do all of those things that they put on the back burner because of money. How many of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about? It's like, I would love to do this thing, but da 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 da. And you know what? Like, someday I will. Like, someday I'm going to have this miraculous job. Someday my house is going to sell or whatever, right? Like, and you just live in this constant path of waiting for someday to happen. And if you've had that going on, and my guess is, based on your comments, that this is not something that you're just becoming aware of. Maybe like the way I phrase it makes you aware of it, but like, this has been something that's been going on in your life for a very, very, very long time. Get out of my head. And Wayne Dyer said this line, and I say it all the time. He said, people live in a world of, I'll believe it when I see it. He said, unfortunately, for those people, the world doesn't operate that way. The universal law does not operate that way. And so what people do is they sit on the sidelines and they wait for their circumstances to miraculously unfold. And then they add all this hope and they buy lottery tickets and they're doing this and they're doing that. Meanwhile, all these dreams that they've had and all of these things that they wanted to do just keep putting back burner. Oh, I'll get there someday. I'll get there someday. One of our teachers always used to say, as far as I know, there's only a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. He goes, but if I wake up on a someday, I know all this incredible shit is going to happen all over the world. I just haven't gotten to that day yet. And he was, it's a joke, but like, that's where people live. They live in this someday reality. So Wayne Dyer was saying that people think that they live in a world of, I'll believe it when I see it. But the reverse of that is true, which is you will only ever see it if you believe it. Now, I'm going to add another piece to that, which I think he left out. Because it's not about just sitting there and going like, I believe. Like, it's not that. That doesn't do shit. That's a piece. And then what needs to happen is you need to take action. And when it comes to money, the action that one needs to take is always, and I repeat, always going to scare the ever-loving shit out of you. It is going to make you feel like you're choking and about to die in that very moment. That's the action. And I really want you to sit with that. Like, life is going to put you to this place where you're going to want something. And all the same stories. I can't do it. I don't have money. Maybe someday. But all this shit's going to come up. And one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to buy that story or you're going to take action that is radically different than any action that you've ever taken. And in the moment, like when you're signing the credit card receipt or the contract, or you're putting your information in online, and you got to push that button, everything inside of you is going to quake and shake and make you run the other way. And you're not going to be able to breathe. And your stomach's going to feel like you're fucking jumping out of an airplane. And it's going to feel awful. Awful. And some of you are going to go like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to do this because I feel so sick. Like maybe this is a sign. And I just want to point to that that's the same voice that has kept you from doing shit all this time. It's like, no, because inside, if you've ever seen that movie Inside Out, like there's that big switchboard with like all the buttons that they can press. This thing in there that doesn't want you to take this risk is literally pushing every sequence that it knows it can to make you run the other way. Because where you are is safe and you'll survive and it's okay. When you say like, nope, I'm done with that, I'm going in this direction, everything inside is going to want you to stop. It's just going to pull you in every which way instead of that way. That one action, that one decisive action of noticing all of this stuff happen and still saying, you know what, fuck it, I'm no longer going to be stopped by my conversation around money. That one single thing can shift it all around. Because that one motion sends a new energetic frequency in the universe, and you step out of that world of, I'll believe it when I see it, to I will see it when I believe it. And from that energy plus that action, you have now set a completely different wheel in motion. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that some fairy comes in the middle of the night, sticks a wad of cash under your pillow, right? Like there's no tooth fairy coming when you take this action. But what there is a complete shift in the paradigm in which you live. Because you switch into this place of, I deserve this. I'm going to give this to myself. And I know that the universe will support me because this feels in my heart and soul's alignment. And if it truly is, like, it will be so. So I'm going to share with you just like a really quick story of timing of these things, because it's sometimes people are like, well, when does it happen? I was like, I don't fucking know. Like my life is different than your life. It's going to happen for you as it's supposed to happen for you. I was 26 years old and I found this ridiculous house in New York. And I walked into this house and I was like, oh my God, it's like the most ridiculous, amazing house. And I tried to convince Guy, me, my friend Ben, and at the time Fanny, we had just started dating. I mean, we were like dating for, I don't know, 3 months or whatever, to all buy this house together. Because it was huge. It was like 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms, big ass house, like. And so my friend came and he was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. It's kind of out of the city. I don't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. And then things with Fanny and I got a little more serious and we realized that it would be weird to have like Guy be a part of the house. And so anyway, I basically looked at mine and Fanny's finances together and I kind of did some rough math and I was like, look, we may be able to make it work. Like we may be able to make it work financially. Maybe not. But in my head, I was like, all right, there's only one way to find out. I looked at her, I was like, would you want to live here? She's like, yes. I was like, all right, I'm all in on this house. I was like, let's take a step. So I started contacting banks. I started putting in information, all that stuff. Lo and behold, we get approved for a mortgage. We close this house. Now, the entire time in my head, I'm thinking, and by the way, I was doing like all this was when The Secret was out. And I'm like writing 100 times on a piece of paper, Elon Ferdman, 35 Fieldstone Way, New City, New York. Like I'm writing the address over and over and over, like, this is my house, right? So anyway, we get the mortgage and we start making payments and we're living. And in my head, I'm like, listen, if the house is meant to be ours, it will work out. It'll show itself to us. And if we don't get accepted or for whatever reason, like it wasn't supposed to be our house in the first place. Fast forward, we're living in the house. We've been there for 2 years, 3 years, something like that. 2 years. I lose everything. 2010, Guy and I both lose everything, but I lose everything and my house goes into foreclosure. Okay. So now I'm in this struggle of, I don't know at what point, in what day, someone's coming to my house to be like, get your shit and get out. Like, you don't own this house anymore. I don't know, like that any day. So I wake up every day and I'm like, is this going? And in the back of my head, I kept having this thing. I was like, look, we got the house for a reason. If the only time that we were supposed to be in this house was these 2 years, then I had an amazing time having this house. And if it's now meant to go to somebody else, like it's going to go to somebody else. And if it's meant to stay mine, it will be mine. So we're going, obviously the whole world economically collapsed, right? So I'm going through this process with the banks, and every 3 to 4 months, Bank of America, who was the holder of the note, every 3 to 4 months, they would put a new agent on my file. And every 3 to 4, so meanwhile, I'm not paying anything, no taxes, no mortgage. And every 3 to 4 months, they put in this new agent and they start the entire process of getting all this information about the hardship from the beginning. Literally like as if I'd never sent anything in. This went on at least 5 or 6 separate times. I lived in this house for close to 2.5 years without paying a dime. And the entire time I'm like, at some point, someone's going to come and take the house. But I kept saying, like, if it's meant to be ours, it will just be ours. If it's not, it's not. They end up selling our loan to this new company, to this new servicer. I get someone on the phone, this new servicer. Within 2 weeks, they send us a letter and they say, here's what we're willing to do. They removed it was like $670,000 in principal and penalties that we had accrued over that 2.5 year span of not paying a single dime. Removed it, wiped it out, gone. We will remove this. They removed our second mortgage. They removed all these penalties. They brought it down to this and offered us a 40-year, 2% interest loan. And this would all go into ink, like this would be our new loan if we're able to make 6 payments in a row. Like once we make 6 of the new monthly payments, then everything goes into plan, Here's the crazy part. Guy and I, during this time that the house is in foreclosure, we're building a business, okay? We weren't making any money. I mean, we were making money, but like not really making money. And any money that we were making, we were just pouring back into the business to grow the business. And so other than like basic food necessities, like we weren't pulling any money out of the business. That month was the first month that we actually created enough income where we were like, hey, we're going to pay ourselves. That was the first month. And then I get that letter. So if that letter had come 6 months earlier, we wouldn't have been able to make those 6 payments. And because of that happening, so that now, fast forward like 3 years. So that was whatever it was, I think like 2013, roughly. because of the equity that we were gifted in that house, we were able to sell that house and take that equity, which we wouldn't have had, to then buy this current house that we have here in Florida. And I'm sharing, so this is like, I'm giving you like the whatever, the 15-year, outline of this. But all of that came from something inside that said, I want this. Like, I want this. I deserve this. And everything inside of me, like, are you fucking kidding me? You're 26 years old. There's no way you can afford this, blah, 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 blah. And me saying, you know what? I hear all that and I'm going to take a step in this direction. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to trust that whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen as long as I do it. And again, I did that and it wasn't all gumdrops and rainbows, right? Like there's all this hardship and all that stuff. But even in those moments, that all those crazy hardships that I went through was the blessing that allowed us to have that lower payment and allowed us equity to help us be here today. I don't know what your life thing is supposed to be. I can't predict it. I've coached thousands of people. Each person is different. What I can tell you is if you keep sitting on the sidelines and thinking that one day, someday, this will all work out and you're going to have this red carpet rolled out in front of you and they're going to be like, here you go. Now you can do all those things that you've put on the back burner for the last 4 decades. It's not fucking happening. Mm-hmm. It's just not. The only way out of the hamster wheel that you're on when it comes to money is you get to take some decisive ass action. And I cannot tell you how many stories I have of people register because they stretch for our level 2 or level 3 program, right? And on that stretch, like 2-3 days later, they send me these amazing messages like, you won't believe what happened. I got a huge tax refund and is paying for the program, or I just got like 5 new jobs or 5 new clients, or my boss gave me a raise or whatever it is. And I'm never in disbelief because I know how this works. I also know how much courage it takes to take that first action. And I don't care whether it's $500, $5,000, or $50,000. Whatever your edge is, if you want expansion inside the world of money, you're going to have that moment where everything inside you can go, this is killing me, I can't do it. And you can move anyway. And that's it. That's it. It's as simple of a thing as I can tell you. And I get that it's not an easy thing to do, right? Like climbing Mount Everest is simple, not easy. You put one foot in front of the other, you make it to the top. It's fucking not easy. If this is a struggle for you, is not supposed to be easy. It's just not supposed to. Like, they don't come knocking on your door and be like, here's that wad of cash that you've been waiting for all these decades. You ready to go do all those things? No. It's just not how it goes.
Not getting a wad of cash?
No.
Fuck.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree, and I love that story, and I think you should tell that story more often. Like, I don't think I've ever actually heard you say that story from that perspective.
I don't know that I've ever actually shared that story in quite that same way.
Not in that way before. I've never heard it that way before. Yeah. That was cool to hear it that way. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, there's a show right now on Netflix, not How to Get Rich. Maybe it is How to Get Rich with Ramit something or other. It's a cute show. And first of all, the certainly in America, and I imagine this goes worldwide, right? There's an emphasis on a lack of financial education in our culture. That seems to be by design, and certainly in America, right? The everything is geared more towards building a business than being an employee. You get pretty screwed when you're employed, and there's a lot of benefits to growing a business, but at the same time, you're also taking an immense amount of risk as a business owner, right? On every single day and creating things in this world, and it could blow up in your face. And many times for Elon and I over the last 12 years of having this company, so it has. And I could tell you, even in the current iteration of our company, like our company's been around for 12 years in June. So we're about a month away from our 12-year anniversary, which is crazy all in its own right.
Bat mitzvah.
Bat mitzvah.
Bat mitzvah. That's what I
Yeah.
say.
And then in 2017, Elon and I pivoted pretty hard with our organization. Up until then, we were doing business development coaching, marketing and sales coaching, and then like some light personal development coaching. And we did that for 7 years as this organization. We had affiliate relationships worth millions of dollars. We left that all behind. Very scary, very risky, right? Because we always knew that the whole reason we got online in the first place was to do what we're doing right now, is to iterate people to transformational coaching, to performance-based. How do you increase your performance in life? How do you heal and resolve things? How do you become a better communicator? How do you have relationships that work? How do you get your health in order, right? Like things that truly fucking matter in this life. And that as a whole, at this level of society, seems that we're completely lacking in that education completely. When we did that, Elon and I had quite a bit of financial resource at that time. So we dumped it all into this company, built a brand. We paid for the best copywriters. Like, you have no idea. And we're like, oh, in a month from now, we're going to have all this business. Didn't happen. 2017 wasn't our 8th year anniversary. It was our 0-year anniversary of what we just started to do again. And if you've ever heard of people being overnight successes, it usually took them about 10 years to get there. And I've now met a lot of people who are very successful. I mean, like billion-dollar businesses, and everyone across the board is like 10 years. It took 10 years to get this overnight success, to make all the mistakes. And so for us, it's like we've been in this company for 12 years. I was like, well, we've been doing it for 12, not quite there yet, but I realized that we've really only been doing this for about 5 years now again. And I can tell you that we're only just starting to see that stability again in our organization, over these last few months and year and stuff like that, because there's so much stuff that you cannot anticipate that's going to happen on these journeys. And so I say that to you because we keep throwing ourselves into that ring over and over again, wherein it's really, really uncomfortable. But it's not about the discomfort, and that's kind of the point of doing this work, is that life never quite gets fully comfortable. There's always something coming. Even if you have all the resource in the world, even if you have money, there are stuff that is out of your control. Health issues, relationships that can go awry, people that get upset at you, accidents that can happen, all sorts of stuff that none of us can predict. And so, like, money is not going to solve your problems. It certainly does open up opportunities. It certainly makes making certain choices in life significantly easier. But let's say you have been dealing with the same issue around money since you were very young. And I brought up the Ramit show because what it gave me insight into is like, wow, like I thought I lacked financial education, and I have a finance and economics degree. They taught me nothing about money, PS. They were giving me like math equations on how to do foreign exchange things that banks do automatically. But for some reason, I had to sit there with a calculator and figure out what's the US dollar worth to the British pound. Like, how did that help me with anything? I got one piece of sound advice my entire college career. I had one, and this wasn't even part of the curriculum. It was a tax guy that said, if there's one piece of advice I can give you is go start a Roth IRA as early as possible. And I didn't listen to him, and I should have, because I would have compounded my money a lot more. The best sound advice, that he gave that for free. The other $160,000 that I paid for, I learned nothing at all about money. I'm having to learn about money now as a business owner because I made a lot of bad choices with money, relegated to the programming I have about money for my family, which had no financial education at all. And so I imagine a lot of you guys are in the same boat. And so I'm telling you the same thing, is that something along the way, you have to make a choice for yourself. And you have to get that people make fucking terrible investment decisions in their lives. And I don't mean like putting money in the stock market. I mean like they go buy glasses they don't need so they can match the shoes that they got yesterday. They buy a cell phone because the last one is 12 months old, and they buy a new one for $1,000 that they don't have. They go take a new car lease. They go into a mortgage that they can't afford. Again, not because you're stupid in any way, because literally people didn't sit you down how to do simple budgeting math and figure out what you can and cannot afford in this life. And so we end up living in debt. And then the one thing that truly makes a qualitative difference in the way that you experience your life is an investment in your own education, and an investment on how to feel safety and well-being in your system so that when the challenges come, you don't freak out and make terrible decisions. Because that's what happens for most people. They make decisions from a reactivity, and they can't respond to what's happening in their life. And I'm as guilty as that as anybody for a very, very long period of my life. It's taken me a long time to see those patterns as they're coming and be like, whoa, okay, if I react here, I already know how that's going to go. I'm going to make this bad decision. I'm going to end up in this bad situation. I'm going to try to fix this thing. It's going to go worse. Like, I've gone through enough iterations like that. And so you got to choose for yourself. What the hell are you investing into? The only investment that I can tell in this lifetime so far that I have made that has not let me down and that continues to pay off and give me a return on investment is my self-realization. Everything else at every level of my life at some point in time has created significantly more hardship in my life. The only thing that eases that has made my life better and helped me transform everything in my life is my investment in myself. Now you can pick a lot of paths to mastery in this world. You really can. And I hope that you do in something, anything, instrument, music, art, dance, parenthood, your health. I don't care. Pick a lane and get frenetically good at that thing. The reason that we're so passionate about this, because spirituality is your inner perspective of how you're experiencing the world. That's what self-realization is. You realize from within, and then it changes what you see out and how you interact with what you see out. So it doesn't really matter what else you do in your life. The foundation, right? Like Elon is hardcore tennis way more than I am. But there again, another good show on Netflix right now is a show called Breaking Point, right? Or Breakpoint. Breakpoint. And it's like the same people who do a bunch of different sport documentaries on Netflix, which are excellent. But you see these people at the top of their game. I mean, top 10 in the world, right? And the difference between a high performer on the court, like a number 1 and a number 3, the gap is still huge. Like I watched it again yesterday with my son. There's the number 9 guy in the world who's a young kid, and there's Rafa Nadal, who is like 110 matches on clay courts, has lost 3. This kid took him to a 5th set. He was only the 3rd person that ever did that, right? And he's number 9, he's number 1. And the gap between them, massive.
Yeah.
Massive. Then he goes into the finals, and the guy he plays, who's number 3 or something like that in the world, it does even worse. Rafa just wipes the court with him, and it was like an embarrassing loss. Huge gap, right? And so the only difference between their two is their ability to respond on the court. It's not that the other guys aren't physically capable or don't have a great game or aren't able to hit the corner of the court or, to play the chess match. But when you get frustrated and you become highly reactive, you lose your ability to respond in that moment in a way that's beneficial to your life. And that's what happens to most of us. We're living in a state of stress. And when we try to deal with money from that stressful place, we deal with it from a place of reactivity. And so we make impulsive decisions. And we buy fast food or fast fashion thinking it's going to make us feel better. And maybe in that moment it does, but in the long run, there's no equitability there in terms of changing your life at all. I imagine, we've never done this, but I imagine for most people or for a lot of people, I don't know what the numbers are here, so I might be completely blowing this out of my ass. But for a lot of people who tell us that they can't afford it, I almost am certain if they would send us their finances and a profit and loss statement, I could easily find the money for them to invest in any of our programs and pay for them full stop on some kind of payment plan. I'm almost positive, because I imagine that most people in that situation are not actually related to what's going on in their financial life. Because that's what I learned from watching that show on Netflix. Like, people are so disconnected and scared of money, and they're buying stuff and they own things in their lives. It's like, it's hard to imagine. And again, I'm taking this with a grain of salt. I'm sure there's a lot of people in very difficult financial hardships, right? And there may be something that you've never thought of that you can do, or you're stuck in a certain way of not seeing what you can do because of your patterns. So like we have seen over the years, people make incredible headway in their ability to create abundance in their life. And the reason they can do that is because their relationship to money changes. There's plenty of people who come to us and they're like, why do you charge for your programs? This should be free. Like Elon said, there's a certain resource that we play in this world for that we currently use as a measure of value. And a person who says that, typically it doesn't, has never been able to experience what it's like to have equity in their life, to make choices. And so people will often transpose their experience on somebody else, say, well, if I can't do it, you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's just kind of how it goes. So look, we can honor that there's lots of people in lots of different situations. It's why we have programs that start as little as $222, and we have our programs that start all the way to $25,000, because we're like, hey, we're trying to give anybody who wants this work at least a leg up. In the same token, I can tell you this. If a person doesn't plunk down some money on the table, money is another way of saying that, of you saying, I'm going to vote for this and I'm going to agree to this, right? The reason there's 33,000 SKUs on the grocery store of food that's not really food is because people agree to it by paying for it. Every single dollar you put into some shitty food, and then they get upset about commercial farming or that this is happening in the world. It's like, yeah, that's because consumers are paying for that and agreeing to it with every dollar that they put into it. If tomorrow everyone banned and stopped putting money into Frito-Lays, I promise you, they would stop making chips overnight and they would start coming out with salads immediately. If people stopped paying for food that was GMO and not organic and pesticides, I promise you, these companies would figure out how to make so much fucking organic food and be coming out the yin yang. Right? We vote for this stuff and we don't take responsibility for it. So you got to look at truly what's important to you in your life. And if you don't have the equity for it right now, then make a plan and get there. If it's important to you. And if it's not, throw this conversation away and pretend you never heard it. Right? Like you gotta go after what's important to you. But like Elon said, that same mentor that told us about one day, someday conversations, he also said, you blink once, you're 30, you blink twice, you're 60. Like I remember him when he was 55 years old ish, right? Now he's into his late 70s. Went by real fucking fast. We were real young when we were around this guy. Like life goes by extraordinarily fast. Your time and your energy are the most valuable resources that you have. You want to protect those things with great fervor, I hope. And if your energy is leaky, so is your money. Promise you that. Right? There's so many things in this world today that you can do with a phone to educate yourself and give you skills and to work part-time jobs online that are very friendly and cost-effective and time-effective. I know because I hire those people all over the place, right? There's so many opportunities today to do things that just 10, 20 years ago you couldn't do from the safety of your home or with reasonable little amount of effort if that's what you want to do. And again, I understand there's all sorts of situations here I'm not taking into account. I can't possibly understand all the challenges you have in your life. We all have them in our own way. So, this is hopefully a little bit of a kick in the butt for some of you guys that really want to do this work, and also for you guys to understand, like Elon and I can never call us a master because no single person can ever be a master of life, in my opinion, right? However, we have put our money and our time where our mouth is. This is something we have done day in and day out for 20 years. When I try to learn something in my life, Elon, again, likes to do tennis. We think it's insane to do that thing without somebody who's in a state of mastery in that. Because, they say practice makes perfect. That's not true. Perfect practice makes perfect. Bad practice makes very imperfect, right? You can go learn how to play golf. Like I can go pick up a club right now and swing that thing all around, and I can hit the ball and then continue to do that and create that habit in my system. But the ball's going to keep slicing to the right no matter how hard I try because I don't know the little things that make the ball fly 300 yards straight. But if I sat there with a golf pro who was like, by the way, you got to turn your hips a little bit, and I don't know anything about golf, so sorry, excuse the metaphor here, and did all those things, I'm going to have to unlearn the bad habits before I learn the good habits. So practice didn't make perfect. Imperfect practice made me imperfectly practice. And so the reason you want to come work with somebody like us and invest your time and your money, hopefully into a program like this, is because you see that these two knuckleheads over here have invested an extraordinary amount of time in understanding the nuance of human development, psychology, energetics, healing, and we've learned a thing or two by working with a few thousand people. P.S. That same mentor that we keep talking about here eventually brought people into his home. He lives in one of the nicest 9-bedroom homes in California that you will ever see. He owned 54 different dental offices. He was a very successful human being. And eventually he rented for free. No, he rented for people who were in transition in their lives homes in his house, even if they were ill in some way, like stage 4 cancer, and he would take care of everything for them. take him to the doctor, bring him to appointments. Like, that's what he did with his life. This is a heavily service-oriented human being, a beautiful human being. His name is Paul. He's incredible. And I asked him, I said, so what have you learned doing that? Because I used to sit with him, even after I moved to California. I would see him once or twice a year. We'd catch up and chat. And I even went to his house one time and cooked Passover dinner for 12 non-Jewish people, which they thought was hilarious. And then I sang all the songs for them, and it was like this whole novel experience for them. And I said, what do you learn? He goes, the guy who graduates 400th in this class and the guy who graduates first in this class are both called doctors. He goes, you don't want to go to the guy who graduated 400th in this class. You want to find the guy who graduated first in this class. And so, when people go to doctors, they give away their autonomy often. If you're going to get surgery done, if it's appropriate, you may want to ask that guy, how many times have you done that surgery? I don't want the guy that did the surgery 3 times. I want the guy that did the surgery 10,000 times. He probably doesn't know everything about it, but he probably knows more than the guy who did it 3 times. So hopefully when you guys are here, if you are looking to invest in our work, like, that's what there's here. We've done that surgery at least 10,000 times in different ways. And so that's what the investment is for, is to get that kind of guidance from that kind of person. You don't go to a doctor, you go, I'm sick. And he's like, well, I can do the surgery. You're like, yeah, but I don't want to pay for it. I want your expertise, but I don't want to pay for it. Okay, then you don't have to, but then you're not going to get the surgery. That's kind of how it is over here too. We would love nothing more than to support people, but we need people who are committed to their craft. And one of the ways that you show us that you're committed is you invest in yourself. And the truth be told is, I'm never giving anyone anything for free. And we've done that many times in the past before, and see them do anything of value with it. Because when you give someone for free, they put no value on it at all. That's why we have to put value on our programs. So you understand that's what you're showing up for. This is the level of commitment that it takes. And I'm telling you that from a person who continuously invests in education and teachers at that level or higher, because I also understand that if I can go hire that teacher, but they're like, yeah, I'll do it for free, I'm still going to treat it like it's free, and I'm not going to give it the equity and time and value that it actually deserves. When I pay for a program or someone's time, $5,000, $10,000 for a few hours of their time, I want to maximize the shit out of what I learn in that time. And so that's just the reality. That's just the way that humans seem to be at this particular time in our history. And so that's what equitable exchange is, right? And for you in your life, if you're not getting paid what you are worth, then you got to change what the fuck you're doing. And you got to figure out a way to get paid what you're worth and what your expertise and your time and your equity and your consciousness is worth. And that will open up a lot of other opportunities for you. But you got to own that. No one's going to come to you and be like, all right, now's the time. And most employed people, just like Elon said, are waiting for that one day, someday thing to happen, instead of maybe leaving that job and going to get something or learning a new skill and then, moving into a field that could potentially open up a lot of different pathways in their life. So again, if you guys are interested, we have the event coming up. It's by far the least investment you can make. I'll even do you a super solid here. And even though we did the 50% off cutoff yesterday, if you go to the intuitivemind.live, we'll still offer you 50% off the ticket. You can do half 50. This is your best way to get a personal experience with Elon and myself. And if you want to have a conversation with our team about the more advanced work, becoming a practitioner, a student, a master in this work, then go have a conversation with them so they can explain to you how everything works here, the different levels that we have, what the time and monetary investments would be, and then the different pathways we have of getting you into these programs. soulsandseekers.com/book. And then fill out that short assessment and then book on one of their calendars. Okay. All right, folks, we love you very much. Hope today's conversation made a difference for you. We'd love to get your feedback. And we'll see you here next Tuesday, and see those of you guys who are coming to the live event on Saturday and Sunday. Excited to be with you. All right, everybody. Peace out.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, dear one, for choosing to share a bit of your day with us. We value you greatly. And as a way to give back and help you to deepen these practices, we want to invite you to join our incredible community on Facebook. You can do so easily by going to joinoldsouls.com and ask for an invite. This is our private community where old souls and seekers are able to grow and share their journey with others. We hold exclusive weekly live streams, we answer your personal questions, and offer valuable insights that we won't be able to share here on the podcast. So again, just head to joinoldsouls.com and grab your invite today. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, please head to iTunes and leave us a review. It's the only way other people can find this show, so if it's making a difference in your life, please share the love. Until we meet again, have an amazing week, dear one.